I think it's time to nip some things in the bud. And when I start reading out the data, you'll see why I said the things I said. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'd like us to put together our first invite. One of our associate pastors, who is also a man of the kingdom that has preached radically and has believed, he has some views he has that he said, we can't tell it in Gath on the streets of Ashkelon. So when we meet in workers' meeting and we are talking, and like, oh, this one is deep, no, this one can't go out, this one can go out. So I hope he can bring out some of it from his arsenal and share. Please help me make welcome Pastor Deji Aladejebi. All the way. And while he makes his way to the front, of course, our very own resident pastor, which is for the first time, he's never really been non-religious, if you notice. Have you noticed? So even me, the energy in the room is tensed. Like the atmosphere, you could feel. When I walked in, I felt that something was drawing me. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic or joke about it. It's actually true. And I felt the power. Of course, the praise and worship was also amazing, which we thank God for. Please put your hands together as we our pastor, resident Pastor Deji Kurumi, as he comes forward to share. He's the only one that is used to media. Please, I'll need that link once it goes live. You can please share the link with me. So please, you need to sit in the middle. Hallelujah. So let me know I'm going to put it on my status, and I'm going to share. Now Pastor Lee, I said you sit in the middle. Okay. All right. Now, let's begin. Now, it's what you don't understand is not a Q&A, 2 minutes, we're talking. They can interrupt me and say, no, I disagree. So I'm warning you up front. It's a conversation. It's a sitting room conversation, right? Obviously, we should have had maybe a sponsor put some drink, Zobo or something, so that we all knock ourselves out. But they may be faster, Some of us were broken at 6. So, are we together? Now, what is the conversation? Kingdom versus church. Yes, there will be Q&A, but towards the end, because the focus here is we're going to dish out. Now, of course, I'll tell you about the other plans, but primarily, we've started. And I will open the conversation with a couple of points. On Sunday, I was privileged to, and I've started, sirs. Please remember the rules. It's not your traditional, I'll give you minutes to speak. If you literally want to interrupt me, of course, after I kind of made my point, you can. Of course, I will also, and say, what do you think? But feel free to interrupt. And of course, I have to be respectful. I don't have a choice. If you shut me up, I will have to shut up, at least on this platform. Maybe when I leave the room, I can carry my argument. Now, I met a 80-plus-year-old man. To be precise, 89. He's been in business for over 40 years. Actually, over 50 years. He registered, I heard he may have registered his company around maybe pre-independence or independence. And he told me something. He said, I've been in business for over 40 years. And I have never, listen to what he said. He told me this on Sunday. I have never had someone that I could completely trust and hands off a certain level of affairs and not have a problem. Those were his words. I repeat, and I've started. He said, I've been in business for over 40 years, and I've never had anybody. Even now, what I'm looking for is a honest, listen to what he said, an honest stockkeeper that I can trust, that will take care of the transaction or the counting that we're about to, because it's kind of factory type stuff, that I can put my trust and rely on. Some of you know what I do for a living. The biggest battles we have when we enter boardrooms or when we enter rooms is that the owner of the company is under siege. Some of you don't know what that means. You've never heard of that kind of madness before. Like, I own a business. I have over 50, 60, 100, 120, 200 employees, but I'm under siege. My employees have taken me hostage in my business. So when I'm talking in meetings, I look like the odd one out. I say, no, I think you don't. No. You are wrong. Let me start this business. And you guys are telling me, you understand what I'm saying? So the reason why this conversation is important is that we are getting to that point. And fortunately for me, and I'm sorry, there's a motive here, and I'm going to disclose the motive, full disclosure. The motive is a selfish motive to push this message quickly, because we started this conversation long before that the church has to wake up and have some serious conversation about the problems we're having. No, not Nigeria's problem. That one is secondary. Not today. But the problems in society that we seem to be looking at ourselves. Now, there's one part of me, and I've started, that I'm trying to get them angry. Steady waters. There's a part of me, some of you have not noticed, and I want to put this confession. I don't carry church on my head. I actually hide it. And I'm confessing. I said, no, what do you mean? People know I go to church. People know I belong. There's special programs. PD is coming. Okay, I push it. But I'm very stealthy about it because, not because I'm ashamed, no. But I actually don't want to be labeled wrongly and be judged wrongly before I finish accomplishing my purpose. What do you mean? So when I go into an environment, I have a clear kingdom agenda. But in most cases, the moment you just, now it's not a rule, please. There's some people that carry it and can go and transcend. But for some of us, we have personalities that, and it may be a wrong mindset that I may be corrected today, but I honestly, I'm not ashamed, but I am concerned. And I cringe every time I see billboards. I cringe like this. I cringe. I just cringe. And I restrain. I know I'm matured now. I'm much older and better behaved. But here is the issue. You cannot tell me that 1, 2, 3, I've called 3, and I can't call their names, but I'm calling them in my head and I'm seeing their faces, where we will all sit down. And these people will be crying. And these are very good people. They're not the horrible ones. And they cannot find Christians or serious people that they can put in the helm of affairs to manage their affairs at any level. It's not CEO now. Any level, even to security guard, there must be problem. And of course, the one that is the most disgusting, and I forgive my choice of words, is when you boss these people and they respond and said, sorry, reply you, I'm in church. So in other words, so are we going to continue like this and pretend? Like, I can't. And I'm suffering from it. All this gray hair is because I'm looking for people, faithful people. I told you about the 80+ man. Where are we going to find them? There's a particular person that said it. He said, now there are some, I can't mention the name, but he said there's a particular place, a camp, that the shop owners are like, man, if you want to sort yourself, just go and I can't say this because this is, you have to be careful now. They didn't send me their rate cards or anything, but I mean, you get the joke. But no, he said there's a particular set of people. They're not Christians. You go and get them. Those are the ones you will put to hold those shops for you. Otherwise, could they work? Last example, my family was doing renovation. This is a testimony. And they were doing renovation on my father's house and my parents' house. And they were on my neck because I'm the one in Nigeria and closest to the house. Because I go to Abuja often. And they said, please, this contractor, we don't know, we want to disburse to him. Can you inspect? Can you verify? Can you check his work? I said, okay, no problem. When I get to Abuja, when I met him, I started to explain to him. He saw I was doing due diligence. He now said, listen to me. Listen to me. He just looked at me and said, 2 things. He said, number 1, I converted from one religion to another religion. Boom. And then 2, I go to this particular church. The moment he said it, I immediately told my people to transfer the money to him straight. Not even to me. Send it to him. I said, this guy can talk like this. Not just talk like this. You change religion. So he's in his mind, he's like, I did that. You think I'll come and now steal money? It got to a point, he was so honest that I had to think for him because he misquoted some things. And he was afraid to come and tell me that he underbilled. So I, on my own, said, don't worry, I will convince my people we'll make up for it. Because I didn't want to take advantage of not his naivety, of his gentleness and his kindness. Well, his gentleness or whatever that is, if you understand what I mean. So, where am I going with this? We can't continue like this. Has the church promoted itself way and beyond at the expense of the kingdom? Because Jesus started talking about the kingdom even before he talked about the church. And the conversation of the kingdom, based on the definitions I've gone to read and research on my own, looks like the kingdom is not just a mindset, but is a reality. The church is actually the 4 walls of an institution, in some cases, or an organization of people and brethren and believers who are equipped, who are trained, and so on and so forth, who fellowship, take care of each other. But once they are done, which we've heard before, but you're going to hear in a different light, are immediately released to go and deliver. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the crux of the matter. And we're asking, when are we going to put kingdom first, right? And advance it? Because apparently, it is the kingdom we're supposed to be preaching and not evangelizing to bring people to church on Sunday to expand our pews. End of introduction. And my own perspective and opinion on where we are. Full stop. Your graces. Where do I begin from? And if I'm not angered enough, I'll bring more stories from my pocket. So why is it talking about anger? I mean, there's a holy anger that needs to arise that will burn nonsense and promote the justice of God.
I mean, there are conversations, there are difficult conversations that we cannot sort of hide from, right? There are realities that confront us. And sometimes we try to bury and make excuses for those realities that we confront, right? And interestingly, quite in the last couple of years, a lot of questions are being raised, even by the primary actors within the church community, if I'll put it that way.
Sorry, sir. Just confirm. Is his mic audible? Is it not audible? I can move the mic closer down to his. It's clear. Okay, they can hear him online, right? Because my audience is on the streets, not here. These ones are my encouragers. Thank you.
You know, so I mean, it's so hit us in the face, so much so that we can't really deny that. Look, there is a problem. You know, back then, you know, you could hide under different things, and there is also the fact that there is increasing, I won't call it frustration, but maybe a generation that is beginning to really question things and look at the faith of their fathers, so to speak, their parents and all of that, and start to look at the trajectory of that versus the environment in which they are. And, you know, they can see the gap, right? They can see the gap, and so there are questions. And I think it's largely because the doctrine of the church had for a very long time really not understood the kingdom message. There are many people who have been in church for a very, very long time. In fact, some of them they've been in church, they've passed on to eternity, but they probably never really heard the kingdom message nor understood it. I think we had been, you know, there was a time where there was so much focus on heaven such that you became irrelevant on the face of the earth. Like anything that has to do with, you know, the engagement of man on the face of the earth look like those things are not important. What is important is that I'm able to tick some boxes and maintain those boxes in terms of, you know, a sense of holiness and righteousness, because the end goal is that I must make heaven. But in terms of just thinking about causing change within the environment, within our world and all of that, there was no thought and energy moving in that direction for many. So for a very long time, therefore, because the kingdom message has not been taught, a lot of places have been darkened, so to speak. Like darkness, there's a lot of darkness in those places and different sectors of our engagement, whether it's the economy, whether it's politics, name it, in different spheres of our engagement, you find that there's a lot of darkness. So I think it's primarily what people inherited, what they heard. But the reality is now, the reality is facing everybody. And you really cannot, you know, there's a clear dissonance in the fact that churches are springing up and we are not seeing the transition of like changed minds in substantial quantity, right? Moving and becoming change agents around our environment. So we've not really been discipled the kingdom way. We've not been discipled the kingdom way. And the truth is, I mean, you hear a lot of messages in different corners, fantastic as they are, but you find that some of them are really bent and leaning so much in one direction that it's not covering what I would call the full gospel, right? Having said that, you know, in reaction to some of the things you've said, I think that as much as it should be the case where there should be an abundance of honest people, people of integrity, that in itself is not enough, but people who are also diligent people who carry the Joseph, Daniel type of mindset in solving problems within society. We expect that those sort of people should be in abundance. We should have sufficient supply, given that there are so many churches that are supposed to be training centers, really, to release those kind of, characters into the marketplace. There are some bright spots, nevertheless, right? There are bright spots. There are people who have come out, from the church, who have gone into businesses and manned businesses, and they've made a great success of it. And the shareholders and all of them are very grateful that, look, if not for this person that came in, who went in with a mindset of, I'm a believer, I cannot disappoint God, I cannot disappoint where I'm coming from, and I have been correctly taught, right? And I need to live up to expectation. So it's not all doom. But yes, we don't have it in abundance, out there. But there are some critical sectors where, and you know where I'm going. There are some critical sectors that until there is engagement by righteous people, righteous men, taking on righteous causes, we may not see the kind of change that we're expecting, right? I was sharing the other day, yesterday, and I was talking about how I was looking at that statement, and I preached about it here in church before, when Jesus made a clear statement. If you think about it very deeply, it should, it may inspire some, let me call it holy fear, some awe, as it were. He said very clearly, he said a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. And he said, either make the tree good and the fruit be good, or forget about the outcome. But I find that we find ourselves in scenarios where we are hoping that the bad tree will produce good fruit. Like we know the tree is bad, but we are just hoping that, good fruit will be produced, right? It's a very fundamental statement.
We're even praying.
Yeah, we even pray about it, right? So I'm on a group where you have a lot of very influential people, WhatsApp and all of that. And I remember, some people, politics, no, let's not discuss politics here, this, that, but there's really no way you can dimension politics out of your reality. And I have to make a comment. I'm like, look, all the planning and all the visions in this room, we exist within a macroeconomic structure and context and reality. And the chief decision makers that control the levers of the macroeconomic realities within which we need to operate, they're politicians. So, I mean...
And civil servants.
Yeah, and civil servants.
Who are more powerful than politicians, but go ahead.
Some men, when America was moving through its own renaissance, some men stood up and decided, when they've seen what the politicians can do, I said, sorry, we can't leave this terrain. We can't just leave the terrain and act as if it doesn't impact us. And they sat down and said, we have to influence who becomes the president, because they have a lot of stake, right? So we, believers also need to really wake up and really engage. And for me, engagement is not about the election period and all of that. It's about post-election realities, right? It's either we change our constitution and model of governance, but with respect to the representative style of governance that we have adopted, it's the kind of governance that requires active citizenship. So if the citizens are docile, then we would see all kinds of shenanigans because they are not responsible to anybody. So the only time that they feel that you are useful or the citizens are useful is election period. So they will come. That's when you will see them. They will come to your area. They will come to your barbing salon. They will come to your church. They will visit because you are useful during elections. After elections, you are useless. So you don't see them. Because after that, there is no engagement. There is no pressure. There is nothing. Everybody just goes about their business and complain. And then every now and then some actors, whether their motives are pure or not, will come organize protests. We all go protest. I think there's another one going on now. Something rant. Rant, what do they call it? 30 days rant. Yeah. You know, we'll go and rant and all of that. No society has changed on the premise of ranting. Or complaints on social media.
Are you sure? Maybe the first.
Or none has changed.
Maybe the first.
None has changed, right? And they keep showing us that this really doesn't matter. They won't tell you that you are the enlightened folks. Absolutely. That the majority are not on this social media. And those are the people that really count at the end of the day. So, I mean, we can talk about that in some other, but I think I've taken enough time.
It's your first time on religion, so we can allow you to push your luck. What do you think, sir, from what you have heard? Starting with my own rant.
You know, the subject of the kingdom is two ways most of the time when I look at it, because as much as we want to analyze things outside, like, okay, there's church, there's kingdom, you know, there is no way for that we're going to actually discuss the problem, you know, without also weighing in on what the church has been. The Bible says you're the salt of the earth. You know, I remember I taught one message where I said that Nigeria's problem is that we are too salty. You know, we are very salty. It's a very salty country, you know. And so a few travels here and there, and I realized something interesting, and which is that as much as we want to talk generally, it's very difficult to have this conversation and still not make it about Nigeria, to a large extent, or maybe developing countries, because the world is not even. Let's not pretend as though there's a particular church kingdom in Nigeria that doesn't work outside Nigeria. I don't even know what I'm talking about. So sometimes when I travel, I'm full of all, my body comes down a bit. Like I'm like trying to reboot to get back into the Nigerian flow, because the world is not even. That's just the truth. And what I noticed again is that when society works, two things that I realized about a working society. If you really want to be Christian, in fact, the truth is that the people, you know, of course, there are bad people everywhere. We can't just, I mean, go to America, go to, you know, Europe, Canada, all these places, terrible people, horrible people everywhere. But the way the society is such that if you want to do your Christianity in those kind of places, your Christianity has a way of just cruising in those kind of world, you know.
Are you sure?
You know, the cruising that I mean is that, you know, there's a schedule we put to Christianity. I pray at this time, I read Bible at this, you know. When you come to Lagos, there's a whole lot of disruption that hits that schedule. Maybe the lights, the water, you know, all sort of things that just kind of mixes up your day. But when you're in this kind of environment, you see, like, the system seems to enable you to be a type of Christian, you know, where you can cruise in that sense. That's what I mean. You know, so it's very hard for us to have this conversation, and I'm not looking at Nigeria as or at least nations like Nigeria as a very special category, you know, within this debate. But I think for me, the most burning question has always been, why is it that the Nigerian church has not been able to flip this coin? You know, that what's the problem? Why do we have and that's the problem, because you know, maybe stemming from, because what produced on this message was also some of these deep thoughts as regarding the challenge with sons, in that why are we not bothered? Why is it not creating such, you know, what is the average person doing about it, you know? Because if you look at Jesus, something about Christ that always gets to me every time was that he was a bit, he was deliberate about being controversial. I don't know if you noticed. No, he was. If you look at what, even from the time he turned 12, is it not an obvious instruction? Like, okay, we are going home. We are file ahead of us. You know, that kind of a thing. But for whatever reason, he had to just...
Or was it the way with the one who was normal? We are the ones that were mad. Or they were the ones that were mad. So he was the normal one.
You know, again, well, normal... Well, that's the way to look at it. Maybe he was normal and the rest of us are. But he's still an exception.
Or that's the kingdom that he was trying to demonstrate. That kingdom behavior and mindset.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that. But I think that it's a mindset he's trying to demonstrate. Because when you... Christianity itself is not... I don't think it's designed to just keep us in a loop, in a sense, where we don't know why we are doing what we are doing. Everybody's just maintaining a routine. And that's the people who made the Western world form didn't follow a routine. They were very rebellious. They were very controversial. They asked questions. They were deliberate about breaking out of a norm. Do you understand? If you analyze Nigeria over the last 40 years, I don't think nothing radically has changed about the way we do. I don't know if you can disprove me. Like I said, it's an open conversation. No, look at from the way we do church to the way we do leadership. Our call, things have literally just remained the same. I've not seen any. The only thing that is happening is that the world itself, tech, everything is changing. The world is, we are kind of moving around. We are resonating along, you know, with the changes that is happening out there. But we are not disruptive by nature. That's what I'm trying to say. And I feel like it's the reason we will never really see, you know, any significant transformation, you know, around here. And it can happen. There are ways to provoke it. There are movements. The reason we have this kind of conversation sometimes is, why we have this conversation is to encourage people to think deeper. Like, to be a little more, that's what we call it unreligious. Because being unreligious means that we're telling believers that, hey guys, can you kind of, how angry can you get to just get out, to break out of your, I mean, of course, it's not the case of Job when they say, curse God and die. You know, that sometimes you want to vent your anger at God. That I don't know if you've ever encountered that kind of problem. That why, you know, but I think that moment sometimes is also, God likes that moment when you have a way of getting angry at a situation, but maintaining your honor for Him as a father. But still, you are angry at things. Maybe your pastor might not like you very much. Maybe by the time you start reacting to maybe like doing certain things, I mean, your environment. Look at Jesus. Jesus was absolutely disruptive. I don't know how he did it, how he managed the sentiment, but the order of the day, the mindset of the day was that this guy is corrupt. He's always eating with sinners. You understand? How did he manage that kind of, you know? Yeah. So, and that's a change maker. So we're here because we are hoping that change makers will arise. But we are not prepared for the consequences of being labeled wrongly. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I get you.
So let me just, I don't know, allow you guys to come in from there. But that's what I'm beginning to see. I don't think we are.
Whether we're ready.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have drank water. So, we will change gears. So, I met a lady today. You know, she walked into my office and she said, So she wanted to invite me for something, and a master class, blah, blah. So she said, so first of all, she has like 700,000 followers or more. So she now said, I went and checked you up online. I see you're not really. Immediately she saw that an holy anger arose in me. Now it wasn't to defend the fact that I have 2,300 followers compared to her 700K. But I was like, people of substance are not online. And I've seen that a million times over. So of course she was now, we ended up, it wasn't a debate, but we ended up settling for the fact that since you have substance, that's more reason why you need to come out. But I told her that I personally have a lot of opinions around these people that are all out and all that. But she now said there was one video of mine that got her interested in the fact that I want this guy to come. Because the event manager was trying to convince her that this guy is an option. The other people, some of you know them, 100K, 200K followers. So just truly 2K3. And I'm very proud of my 2K3. Because I'm what I call a wholesale celebrity. They come to me at night, Nicodemus. Those people with 500K, they come, oh, how far? Well, not well. Leave all this down. I'm like, and I'm like, oh, are you serious? So with your 500K, I come, oh, my, not well, Tafa. Leave matter. I am hearing where. So I'm like, okay, with my 2K3, I will manage it. But here's the point. She said I said something that struck, and I was surprised. She said, there's one video I did, and that was in TVC Abuja, when I said, how can we have so much church? And I said, that's not an extraordinary message. That's basic stuff. That. If you're following me, you know that we don't deal on this matter since. So, but what was shocking to me was that sounded impressive. I'm like, eh? So I'm like, question, wait, you think that being, and there's nothing wrong, but you think that this is what we should be having a conversation about? How can you have... Now, please let me clarify something, because I think I matured a bit. I'm not angry with the church. I'm not blaming the church. I've benefited a lot from the church, right? The church has kept me sane, has given me a platform and everything. The church has served me well. Trust me, has trained me, character, everything. So I also want to judge my intentions to make sure that I'm not bringing out a wrong... I don't have a wrong spirit. And it is the body of Christ, for goodness sake. I dare not. However, and I'm not here to correct the excess or talk about my own concern is I want to like almost say, guys, hey, look, that's what I'm trying to do, get the attention of the people in the church to say, let's look in this direction. Why am I saying so? Now that my next argument is, and it's a theory, that maybe it's time, and we're going to put this out there, for pastors and leaders, and I'm going to speak to them directly because I told you I'm not a moderator, I'm also a participant. But standing to be corrected. Yeah, I'm the only one that has disclaimer because I wasn't anointed on the hair. You understand? I'm a layman that is being managed in the system. But here's the point. Sir, I think I want to call attention to church to say, pastors, your people are not doing well outside. I'm sorry. The work and effort you're putting in all cases, you need to, maybe those Sunday school in the morning, 8 to 9, that is to do growing up, we may need to resume those things. The thing needs to settle inside because we in the market are not feeling your people. In fact, we're more comfortable now hiring people of other faiths to get what we want than you. And the people from our own faith have so fallen our hand that we've lowered our expectations. No disrespect. I'm saying it's all sense of responsibility and fear. Because I'm also, the Bible says, if he that stand take it, lest he fall. So I'm also being very careful. And that's one of the reasons I gave that lady, my precious, now she's my good friend, why I said I kept my profile low. Mr. Tafa, you come out here and say, I still have things on my journey I'm dealing with. I have personal issues I'm not sorted. Still trying to get my prayer rhythm together and also show up online. No, not all of us should aspire to be teachers. But because teachers will judge with higher standards. So there were personal things that, and of course, when it's time, God will announce you. But the point is, or they'll send for you like Joseph. But the point is, leaders, and I know I'm sitting among them, and they are doing their best. I mean, they don't hold any, that your people, problem day. Then secondly, and more scarily, is that I feel like the church, now this is the most controversial one, this is where I stand to be corrected, has stolen, I pick my words carefully, an unbalanced amount of time from people, killing their ability to be more productive for the broader good of the country and whatever, than they would have. So not all of us should be in church 24 hours. Some of us actually have to be told, you cannot be an associate pastor. It will take too much of your time. You are better off 1, 2, 3 contributions. The rest, we need you in this place doing this work. But the moment you just spring up, They just corner you, bam, and they lock you down. And you spend, now does that mean associate pastors don't have responsibility? Of course, they are building believers, they're teaching people. I understand that because there are deep things that I cannot really go. But I also think why I'm saying so is that there's an energy and a commitment that is required to power it. You can't leave here at 6 p.m. on Sundays after spending money to Friday at the office, working for a bank or any of these tasks, whatever organizations. And then Saturday you do some other things and then I don't know, it's tough. All the other extracurriculars, estate meetings, political groups, whatever, NGO, whatever will advance and reduce them. So some people, I believe, may need to be prayed for and be reversed and say, no, you are not designed to be in here all the time. Is that a radical opinion? Is that excess? And I'm taking that position because I also have seen the gaps. Because once we come to those matters, I don't want to talk about estate meetings and all that. I'm on two, the one in my Abuja and the one in Lagos. And I noticed the way conversations go and the involvement. And who is involved, who is not involved. And honestly, I'm sorry. I'm not saying they should come and put their believers, but it's not. And I feel like that's part of the problem. So I want to begin to release people to know that that there's another responsibility and advancement of kingdom that can happen outside the four walls of a church.
Sorry, and there's something you said that I just want.
It's an opinion, by the way. Yes, sir.
Yes, about this issue of, maybe it's also some things that are on social media, and these days I think people are just wary of even talking. Like this talk we're having, I'm even concerned because now it's public.
You fall in wrong hands.
And they just cut
and send your invoice.
Like I said, so people should not go to church again. That's all you will hear. That our pastor said people. Those kind of things are. The world has really changed.
No, we'll still come to the utility of church.
Yeah.
Marriage counseling, putting families together, raising children that are godly. We do a lot. Let's not. People even cut their teeth. What they eat now.
I think that one of the things that some churches have done, maybe I don't even know if there was a time that we, growing up, I grew up in this kind of fellowship where you are not going to be pastor forever in that kind of thing. So when you come into that setting, you are a leader. And you participate in that intensive spiritual activity. And even if you're made a president or a pastor, you probably lead for 2-3 years and then you move on. So there's another person who is,
It's deliberately designed that way.
It's a good it wasn't even it's just the fact that it's a transitional fellowship. But it was such a very effective transitional fellowship. I'm talking about transitional fellowship that, we don't have speaker, all this equipment, or we don't have to pay any musicians. We just clap and sing with our hands, you understand? And then you see very intensive worship, intensive prayer, deliberate, deep insight into scriptures, and a lot of edification. But because we can't stay there forever, because it's just a fellowship that happened because we all fresh graduates and we have nothing doing, and then so on and so forth. But I want to realize that the transitional fellowship model can be very effective because, just like you said, it's packing you with spiritual resources without necessarily tying you down to a routine, for so many years. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Staying in one thing for 40 years is chastisement. We saw it in the scripture. And maybe one person that understands this model very well too is even our Father in the Lord himself, PD. It's very hard for you to lock PD down in one place for a while, But the general idea for me is that the church needs to look into transitional models, just to agree with what you're saying, which means that we can look at you and say, bro, how many years have you been in this church? By now, you ought to be teachers. By now, you ought, it's like we start to force people's hands into being something, outside the church. Not just that we are just happy to have you glorified as the head of something, and then, but there is a deliberate set of activities just designed to I think the tribe system is one of the the
approach.
Yes, one of the most the deviation from the most, I'm trying to what the one that is on the norm I've seen the most in terms of, yes, just trying to capture that concept. But I think we need to still take it a little further. Do you get what I'm saying?
What do you think, sir?
Yeah, I want to say again, it's not all gloom, right? It's not all gloom. And
Pastor, when you say it's not all gloom,
what I mean by it's not all gloom is that it's not a statement of absolute, a blanket statement that, believers are not effective, right?
yes, we are believers too. Go ahead.
Yeah, so outside of us, I know certainly that we'll meet believers in different aspects of the society that are, standing strong for kingdom values and being change makers and influencing people and providing leadership and, within their own sphere, really influencing people for God, right? Showing up as examples, and people are looking and saying, how do you get this done? And, you are introducing them to your faith, and they can just see that this is an exemplary man of faith and someone worthy of emulation, right? So that's what I mean by it's not all gloom, okay? I think the challenge is, like I said earlier, we should have significantly more abundant number of such people, right? A critical mass causing changes across board. I also don't think, there are some, but again, just being careful in terms of making blanket statement. Now, the church itself, there is a church, like I always say, there is a church that is an organization part of church. And wherever people have to gather, and associate with themselves, there has to be some degree of organization around it. We should not mistake that from the generality of the called out ones who are part of the body of Christ, and we should not also mistake that for what we typically call church when we say I'm going to church, which is a gathering of believers within a local assembly to be schooled and to be educated. And I think that's the job that the pastors need to understand that they are doing, that you are actually educating people, discipling people after an order. So maybe at some point we'll go into what kind of messages are really being taught on the pulpit, because that in itself can significantly influence, the people, right? It's really what they hear and what they believe that they go out there to manifest, or impact on their psyche and their opinion and their worldview, right? So I don't so much buy so much into the statement that church is taking a lot of people's time, right?
A lot of
so there are some churches.
I pick not ordinary people.
Yeah,
the people that would have served us better outside.
Well,
this is a strong word.
Wait, how do you want to tell that? Jesus didn't go to the synagogue now, right?
So Jesus,
he went to the fishermen, he went to the tax collectors, he went to the...
I don't like to use Jesus. Jesus was setting a template.
So Emmanuel, we cannot legislate on that, right? We cannot legislate on that. We still met one that told us he disobeyed and is reaping the rewards of it. But we can't legislate on that.
Someone that served the country first and then came back. That one is different. It's the reverse. He had delivered, then came back to now.
No. So I mean, you understand what I mean? He was called sins.
No, you mean he was supposed to resign from Central
Bank? He was called.
No, he was after
Hello,
he
left. You are ready?
No, they don't know him.
But just to add to what let me just add something. This issue of church taking people's time is also a very anchor point.
It's our private conversation.
Let me tell you where
I told you the incident I had in my office of one of our
staff. So it's not
was meant to attend to a customer, and 4 p.m. she just started me and said, "I know I have to be in church now." And like, this is 4. This is not closing hour. That kind of thing.
But so that's what I'm talking about. Blanket statements. There are churches that the demand, literally you'll be useless outside, right? So let's distinguish them from themselves. There are some churches that you are having fellowship.
But these are like our kind of.
You are having literally fellowship every single day. You understand?
True.
You are having, there are some like that, and you must be there. Like it's a must. You have to be there. You are not there, it is counted as rebellion. There are some sort of extremes like that, right? I think it's more of down to the message. Right? It's down to the message. There are people who the messaging that they have gotten is such that their only orientation around I am of service to God is what they do in church.
Yeah, true.
So, because they've been oriented that way, that God is pleased with what I do when I do it within the church, they then give their best in the church. They won't be late to church. Because they've been school, you are late, this is you understand? So that fear of God in quotes, you see them, they are the most excellent ushers, they are the most excellent in whatever they do and all of that. But there's a contradiction when they get to the office and to work.
I'm questioning that. Is it God they fear, or we want to belong?
It is an orientation.
Let's separate the fear of God.
Since I brought the point,
Since
I brought the point, and I like the fact that it's balanced because I almost ran off. And I'm just thinking about it now. We feel like, oh boy, I hope I will not go and you just start receiving resignations. It's the pastor resignation. Pastor, I resign. Hey Joe, but that would mean I'm influential. But no, I take that back. Yeah. But I'm looking at some people who hear this message today and I'll be like, we'll get the, because one of the times I always say jokingly, because I lead like 2 units in church. Funny enough, I'm very busy too, like 3 actually. I now said, my problem with certain agendas is that I don't want somebody's ambitious plan to turn me into like somebody in church that wants to become a pastor, who is leading that group, is now driving us up. Prayers. Meanwhile, his ambition is to be pastor and he's using us. So that's why I fear units. You know, units where, what is the plan? Where we're gathering to do what again? We have to. How? Like, now that's a bit maybe excess. And I'm sorry. It may be personally excess. And that's why, but where I'm going, sir, is that there are, if you notice what I said some people, and I think he said it. Please, we need to say, I serve in children's church, I serve in finance, I serve in tribes. So I'm talking, thank God Paul said I pray and talk more than you. I have like 4 or 5 units. So let's balance things. I'm not useless to the church. But I also think, sir, that the way I try to personally balance, and thank God for the leadership we have, not no patronizing or what's the word, singing someone's praises. It has helped us, people like us, to thrive. Because if I was in any environment, I would have either left or just become a pew member and sit behind the scene. So my challenge is balancing. I'm not talking about the other fantastic groups like choir or those ones, they have their priests. I'm sorry, they're Levites in a sense, and they have deeper consecrations, and it's important. Even we too. It's not as if you're in children's church, you'll be missing church like once or twice a Sunday, a month. But the idea is being able to wake a consciousness and say, there is a huge responsibility that I have outside of the church that I must demonstrate. In fact, I've gotten to a point where I've resigned. Now maybe the data is supposed to be 1:12. Joseph to 12 brothers or 11 brothers. Meaning 1:11. Meaning 1:12 actually. Meaning that for every 12 people, you can only find 1 Joseph. Is that really correct? Maybe that's the standard. And when you now come to a children of Israel, it's Caleb and what? 2 million. You're saying,
but that didn't,
they come and fill the roles I'm trying to fill now.
Didn't allow them to achieve their result in time.
No, you know what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to resign and say, maybe we're not supposed to, all the one I'm shouting, okay, the ratio is 2 to 2 million or 1 to 12. I know it sounds funny and outrageous, but when you really think about it, I mean, maybe I'm always coming from the other side, as if God doesn't have people. God has people.
Yeah.
But we have a very unique situation on our hands. And it's not as if I'm talking of very unique. And some of us, will get to understand my pain one day. So I thank you for clarifying that so that I don't go and, champion mass resignation. Not from here, but other places too.
I don't even think that's the motive.
Who say they're not
who serve in church do so out of passion. Literally, when you serve in church, you serve along the line of what you really love to do. It's not because they say we should, which is what we
No, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sorry, told you a lot of people are serving men of God. Let me give you that one. That one I know.
No,
because
know.
you know why? Because in their private corners, they are doing things that God is not proud of. So you know the reason is not.
That
Is
is
the
not-
first.
yeah, which is
And
true.
another argument I've had is that in the name of building an organization, we have driven men. You know what I'm saying? And it has its demands. Somebody may argue that your own church can go. Yes, it came at it, but it is that we're not trying to build a personal man's agenda or a program. We're actually just here to raise believers. So there is that challenge and concern that, and this is the part that is sensitive, that these were people's ambitions that were built. Some people know those things, and I can't get into that. It was not really to promote the agenda of God or to build people so that they can be relevant and useful in society. Otherwise, is the gospel that weak? No, it's not.
It comes down to the messaging.
Yes, which is what you're saying. Yes, I agree with you. It's not. And it will shock you where this message will go, because this is how I sat down in Abuja and I was having a conversation. And then lady now listen to it with 700,000 and says, this is what reasonable. I say, hey, we're happy you want to post it in your 700K. Let's see who will respond. Maybe I should ask for that favor. I say, tweet this. Okay. So maybe we'll take a one or two comments if from the congregation, if they want to lend their voice on the subject and on the agenda. Then we have my movie button. Okay, ma, I don't have a choice. Please, can she have a mic and then she'll stand at the. Okay, the mic is here. So you can please come to this point and we begin. Thank you very much. Please let's put hands together for our panelists while we are being. For those in the.
Good evening, church. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm not fighting you guys. Hi. Hi. Thank you so much, our panelists. This has been so, what's the word? Informative and like helpful. And I think maybe some of the things that we're hearing are like inner burdens that many of you are expressing, agitations and all of that. So just, I think the first thing I would say, maybe PDA should clarify what he was going to say about the fear of God. And then something came up about people's motivations for, doing things for God. And then the conversation around fear of God, that not everybody that has the fear of God is doing it like. So yeah, I'd like to know where that thought ends, like PDA. Then my other contemplation or question would be, so yeah, I think maybe for the sake of, I don't know, maybe the platform, I'm not sure how to direct this, but I think a lot of us here, or maybe in the institution that is TBC Lekki, is a bubble, right? Many of the things that we are saying here, and I think that's what you were saying about this having, it needs to be unreligious, because many of us kind of share the same thoughts, we have the same ideals, the same ideologies. So, in fact, we've been doing how many weeks of kingdom versus church, or church versus kingdom, so it's not so new, or, the lady that you spoke with was like so amazed, like, so you mean you can... If you probably bring it here, we're not going to be so moved. That's how we live, right? Mm. So what I'm trying to say is that we've probably, or let me speak for myself, I've probably heard this we've heard this. There's so many iterations of this, right? And I kind of have a footing of what to do in my own personal life or where to go. But like PDK was saying, right, it's not all gloomy. And I would like to ask, what do you see about the coming army that God is raising? Because we cannot say maybe in 2025 that we don't know that the church of this generation is not the church of what we had growing up. The agitations in the body of Christ is too much for God not to be doing a move, right? You're having Wolfbeck, you're having the apostles, you're having PDK. Sometimes personally, PDK, let me confess, I feel like sometimes PDK has something he wants to say. The Spirit of God just says, no, tell them. So we are doing like series upon series of, una head go clear. Your mind, you must have sense by force these people, right? So I feel like staying here in TBC, or there are specific programs and programs or like interdenominational things that God has been raising in the past few years that we cannot honestly say that where we are now is where we were as children. It's a lie, right? So it's maybe you have to be under a rock to not see that God is doing something, and an army is going to burst out very soon. So my question is this, right? Our panelists, what do you see about the army that God is raising, right? Because we are all going, oh, the light, somebody's shining light. But there are 70,000 people who have not bowed down to bow yet. There are people who are praying and doing the work. Where do you see PDK for you, where do you see politics in the next 5 years, right? Dr. Tafa, you're burden for competent people. Where do you see, like, if we take our eyes off the darkness for a bit, PDA, where do you see business venture, right? Do you see that maybe the next set of people you're hiring will not give you the excuse of 4 p.m., like they need to go off, right? Because if we're saying that we need a solution, and for 2 years I've been in this church, I've been hearing basically one line I can give myself is, I am the solution, and you release me, and you let me do what I need to do. There's a different orientation you have. You can't come in and be saying, but there's no, I'm not seeing darkness anymore. I'm not seeing the gloom, like it's like being Daniel, whether it's APC, PDP, I will serve.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's clap for her. Appreciate that. So that's why we decided, and we're trusting God is one that is also going to enable us to say that no, this stuff is for outsiders, not for us. And that's why we turned the conversation. Obviously, we're using a platform that is podcast and all that. But before they respond, or you're going to respond to her question, Prophet, God has an army, and then of course also 4 p.m. and.
So there's a lot going on, right? And I want to be careful in terms of the notion around something new, a revival, there are some new moves, etc. It's not new, right? It's happened historically as generations move one into another. What we must be careful about is that whatever is happening in different corners is actually ending up crystallizing into developing the right, or let me say, a better discipled set of people who can become change makers, pretty much witnesses for Christ. Witnesses, or a witness implies someone who was there. You are active. Your life is a witness. It's about testifying to something that you have handled, right? So you can speak very confidently. You can influence very confidently, right? So a lot is happening, but all the energy, the prayer is that it crystallizes into change makers, better discipled than the past generation, that we don't end up when everything has quieted down, that we don't end up with a weaker specimen of disciples than those that had gone behind, right? So we have a lot more razzmatazz in our day. There's a lot more around social media and all of that. So the tendency to be very highfalutin and to just stay, and just not take like the elementary, strong, foundational doctrines that ground people, not taking that serious, but it's just an appeal. Celebrity, we can look good, fine boys, fine girls, everybody looking chilled and all of that. Yeah.
Reality.
You understand? And we're all, but so my fear is that we don't end up with weaker specimen of people. So, there's a lot going on, but what really, really is going on is the word being taught. And then those who are being taught as well, even for those who are really, you can see it, you can resonate with the kingdom message being taught, is that there is also a corresponding action. So there is also the case of knowledge versus I'm not just hearing, but I'm a doer as well. The doing is what produces at the end of the day. Right? So as much as it's almost become a popular, saying now to say, don't preach experience, preach doctrine and all of that. But largely, I wanted to take that largely back, but honestly speaking, my fear is that people behind the pulpit don't end up teaching their own realities. And let me say this. When men of God stand up behind the pulpit and they are sharing, and they are not, particularly for those who are not engaged in the market, Their primary sphere of reality are things around ministry.
Yeah.
Now, when you teach and you are not conscious of the fact that the dynamics of the, let me say, socioeconomic system that runs and works for ministry people is not the same for those that go into the marketplace. So when you are talking and you are giving instances of
Somebody go pitch your
fantastic
office.
miracles and stuff that happens,
Miracle alert.
you know, and people around the church stand up and they're like, oh my God, oh my. Look, it's very unlikely that will happen for you in that same way.
Yep.
Because the dynamics around your own reality in the marketplace
This is one of the diagnoses
is different.
Yes.
of our problem.
You understand? So the let me just put it this way, and this is sort of watering it down. The economic reality of the Levites, where some people have to go and work and come and give youth who are serving.
Yes.
That economic reality of the Levites and all the miracles they can tell about being a Levite is
never-
different from
Yep.
the ones who need to get into the market.
Yes.
Do you understand? So when you are thinking and you are waiting for that same reality to happen to you, but you are not diligent, you are lazing around, you are messing up with opportunities, you don't have discernment to discern relationships, discern opportunities that come to you looking like small 5 stones without knowing that this can kill Goliath. You don't have all of that, right? Will it work? So your pastor, a full-time pastor who is a Levite, can come and talk about the fact that I pray 12 hours a day. I fast every other. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And the time you should be researching and building your own skill, you understand? You are
Studying and praying.
studying and praying.
At the same
I'm not
frequency.
saying praying is not. You are
the
trying to
same
match the frequency of your pastor so that you can get the same kind of result. Then you get frustrated over time.
Yep.
Then you say, this is a scam. I'm leaving the church. All they know is take my money and this, that. That's what creates the confusion.
Absolutely.
Right? So, and then the messaging, you know, when all your prayer is, everything is coined around, and as much as that is, again, I always say,
Wow.
that is part and parcel of the kingdom. The supernatural, spectacular, and all of that. But if that's the only means in which you think that you can show up for God and for the kingdom, you are neglecting a significant part that has been left, I always say, to your control
Absolutely. Wow.
as a believer. The principles are the same. And the sad thing, you know, I talked about this, is that, see, you will see, quote and unquote, the dogs, as Jesus referred to that woman, the dogs are eating the crumbs.
Yes, sir.
And the crumbs is healing them.
Healing them.
So you look at the dog who is following after the principle and getting healed. I'm using analogies now. And you look at the dog and say, but that guy is a dog and not a son.
Yes, sir.
How is that dog getting the same result? After all, that dog doesn't go to church. The bread that is for you, you are not eating the bread. So these things cause a lot of. That's why I said the messaging, the pulpit needs to be careful about the kind of teachings and, you know, and like you said, ambitious people who is just about building. Do you understand?
The empire.
Building an empire.
And competing against themselves.
You understand? Building an empire as opposed to building people and being conscious of the fact that I need strong men. I have a responsibility under God to build strong men who can go and win souls and change the society
Kingdoms.
and take kingdoms.
And take kingdoms.
Yes. Right?
True.
If you are not conscious and all your intent is about building an empire as a man behind the pulpit. All you want is, I want to build an empire.
Wow.
Right? The messaging will be wrong. And you can end up building highfalutin people
So I think
who are
this-
not grounded,
this clip is
and
going to-
everything just...
This clip is going to trend because I'm already playing the reels in my head. You know this again. You know, I told this, but they're just here to support us, or give us morale. So it's going out. You know, this message has been stuffed here, and the saltiness is beginning to. Let's release it. So, sir, we have 11 minutes or 10 minutes. I mean, you may not come back again.
Let me just add something, just a little bit of, first of all, to address the issue of the fear problem, the fear of God. So there is always the structure and the fear of being called out, one, which sometimes I feel is even the bigger fear, because just like you have pointed out, there is a fear of God that actually conditions your... The fear of God is exhibited in your operation outside the church, you know, in that sense, not just what you do within, because which pastor will rejoice that you are that's your pastor rejoices that you are very effective in church. You come on, and then outside there you are a wolf and you are filled with all sort of dead men bones, you know, that kind of a thing. Which kind of pastor will be rejoicing at that, you know? So, and we should know these things, that if that's the kind of, just also like what you said, a lot of pastors they are not within that reality. So they don't even know how to rate their members on the basis of the metrics of what is going on outside. So they only rate a brother because they see the brother, what is going on. He's always seated in this corner, always on the instrument, always, you know, that's the scorecard.
Always saying, talk to me, pastor.
Exactly. Yeah, which is is there. Sometimes it's frustrating, even when pastors make the assessment. And the two things and one thing that I wanted to mention is that I said I believe that somebody still needs to do like a PhD to give us a report that actually measures the impact of the church.
What did pastor do?
No,
Pastor, that's what he did now.
PhD, I know.
Uh-huh.
But that thing now needs to come out.
Oh, okay, yes.
So that...
And I think he started it. It's just that he switched off that recording.
Exactly.
Because some of the things were too deep.
You know, we need to, because if you keep doing the same thing the same way, you know, like what kind of outcome do we expect you get? So that's just one thing. I think the other thing I wanted to mention, which is something I will just drop, is I've come to realize that when you listen, when you are a hearer, PDK, when somebody is a hearer and a hearer,
I know where you're about to drop.
you know where I'm going, right? You are the ones enriching the people talking. Now, what that means is that when you keep hearing someone and you are not doing, what happens is that naturally money is gravitating from the hearer to the person who is, because just like we know, people are between pastors. The pastors are so rich, in Nigeria, I mean, men of God. Now, if that is his own duty that God has called him to do, by you hearing him, you are enriching him.
He has done his work.
He's doing his work. But by you hearing and not doing, you are the one depreciating.
You're not doing your own work.
Because you are not doing your own work. So it still stems from the fact that, see, you don't need to, if it's an anointed message, you can't be under an anointed message for 2 years and you have not gone to look for somewhere to occur. It's not possible.
Wow.
You just have to, you have to be an occurrence somewhere. So that's the key thing here that, and I think which is what I said, is to start causing provocation. Provocation is that, okay, fine. Yeah, maybe even if we don't see you in church, we know that we didn't see you in church because you are occurring somewhere. And that occurrence can be defended.
I feel justified. I'm just kidding.
No, yeah.
I'm not, that's a joke.
Why should I be mad as a pastor that, look, you are not here today, but I can categorically say that whatever it is you are doing, when it produces in a year, you're bringing massive harvest to the body. or it might not necessarily be in terms of maybe soul in counting, but whatever that output is translates into better souls, better people, better society in some form that is measurable. Do you understand what I'm talking about? So why should I be upset as a pastor that, we've not seen you for a period? Because, this is some of the loops we're talking about. That can we just break people out of that model that, okay, we expect to, if this ministry will run for 40 years, there are some of you, it will be criminal for you to be here that 40 years, just running that church loop. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Without a significant occurrence out there, at some point. That's just what I want.
You know one thing, and I'm gonna say something that is gonna shock everyone. I think I just got my purpose. The purpose for all this, if you know my talk, I'm always around competent, the judge. I think I just got the revelation for the purpose for which I've been pursuing that message. And it's that I'm actually not called to the pastor, I'm called to the followers. I am supposed to be, and I'm sorry I'm talking like a step-down transformer to help this pastor, because the pastors are actually trying. Some of them they are pumping, but there's a point it gets to, an amplifier or a converter that will break that word and hand it over to them. Whether it's coming in a diluted form or it's coming in a concentrated form. We have the concentrated version. Our own is crude oil. You see that in the TVC message, like, what did they just say now? I was talking to people joking. I was hiring one guy. So I asked him, what state are you from? What church do you go to? And I told him, listen, you're an HR guy. Dude, I'm frustrated. I check your church and I check your state of origin when I'm hiring. And those two things give me an indication. No, not all states. There are 2 states, I can't say it here, that I know that once I hear that state of origin, I'm already biased. You likely have that job. I sent them back. The guy gave one offer like that. I said, go and look for him. I want him back for the sake of his state of origin. But I also check church. Now, there is I'm sorry to say, the chicken republics. You can't really tell. You just go in there, it's all over the place. But there are the ones that, which church? Okay. And I can't disclose, but there are certain churches that this one will be good. Or the other one, I'm not sure. This one will be one-way traffic. Like, you just be thinking. Now, I'm not demeaning or mocking the church. Please, I'm not. But I'm telling you the impact of the message, me as an employer and a recruiter, to see how the message converts to result, where you can talk to them and they won't sleep at night. You just say, I wasn't happy with the way you handled that meeting. And the guy has lost his sleep. It's not the one that, I don't want to talk about your 4 p.m. so that you won't run out of the faith and say, we made him or whatever. But do you understand what I mean? So I think you're saying something, and that's what I need us to conclude on. Maybe it's a followership issue. Because if you just you guys, I'm tired. Like I've been talking, are you like bereft of? Yeah. Do you understand? So maybe, but doesn't the message itself have the power? Or should pastors take a direction of praying to get to the point where these people can deliver results? So you don't know why I sound frustrated. I mean, I go to I don't want to mention the church in Abuja. These guys block road on Sundays. You don't understand. It's not here that they're doing on Akim Dixon, Central Mosque, that they block Sunday and we're complaining. No, they do that more in Abuja. They don't block church in Lagos. They don't block mosque in Lagos. It's Abuja. They will block highways. First, second service, no, the road is blocked. Everything legitimately. And I'm like, impressive. And I've said you block road, but we cannot control election. No, I don't agree. But it's because I've learned to, be myself, calm down. Now I know who I'm called to. It's the followers. Clearly. And that's my salvation. But in conclusion, I may not come back because they need to give me like 1 minute remarks to tie this up. What have we tried to achieve in this message? Like I told you, the thing is not designed for you. You people have had enough. You have stuff. Don't be obese, with the word. We now need to go and give it out to the generation. Because if someone can come and tell me this thing sounded reasonable, I'm like, this is bread and butter and TBC. You're coming to say, then it means that we need to put it out. And I think we've learned a lot. We didn't come to Cascade Church. No. We're just saying that we have a huge sense of responsibility as believers to now know that if you have received, but you don't go and happen, something. So it's a challenge to everyone, whether you're in the room or you're watching us. It's time to manifest. And it's time to actually live up to the expectations of the word that you have received. But let me pause and take closing remarks I'll start from you, sir, and then, okay, you spoke last, so you have to, then you will now close, even though it's supposed to, but sorry, bear with me.
I don't know what else to say, but maybe I pick one of Chiamaka's.
Yes. No, you gave her the answer. The fundamentals are still important. Let's not be carried away by what will happen. Even though, is there an army that is coming?
Is there an army that is coming?
That's
There's
a
always an
question.
army. There is always an army coming. I think it's important to really go back to the kingdom message. Outside of kingdom message, it's religion. And unfortunately, I think religion continues to remain the bane and the shackle that is also holding several societies, including ours. It's amazing how religious we can be, in this climb. Everything is on different sides. And let us not have the mindset of take on religious togas and all, but focus on the kingdom message. The kingdom message is very open. It's very open, it's very broad, and when you get right into it, you'll understand why Christ, the kingdom message, centralized around Christ, cannot be caged by religion. Once you cage it by religion, you've destroyed the message itself. So this is not about some sect, right? This is about government. This is about kingdom. It's about government. It's about the will of God and his engagement in the affairs of men. So God has always been dealing with people severally across board, and it is a message that transcends any religion. I dare to say that regardless of any sort of affairs of men that you're engaged with, right? When you see kingdom community people, this is the place where Christ has been resurrected. They see Christ resurrected. The light has been resurrected. You still see in certain other spheres, Christ, as it were, is buried. Right? But there's some light. There's still, you just need to go there and trigger Christ within that sector. Whether it's a religion, whether it's an economic system or whatever, he is buried everywhere. He's buried everywhere. By him and for him were all things made. Yeah. So everything that you find has an element of Christ in there. I was telling some people, not some people, I had some conversation, I still had it with my wife earlier this morning. And I said, look, when you read the Old Testament and you read, if you are able to really picture the sacrifices and everything that happens in the Old Testament, it's not different from your Babalawo setting. It's not all that Babalawo setting that you look at, and if you see where, they are killing goats and spilling blood on the altar and all those rituals and everything that you read in the Old Testament, there is a way we just read it in like picture it properly. It's literally a replica of a shrine. Maybe I'm getting too deep. Maybe I should stop there.
Finish.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
But the thing is that the essence is buried. Wow. So if I get up in the morning and there's someone who says I am belonging to this sect, Oluwo, whatever, and they get up and they are making incantations in the morning ahead of their day. What you will call, you are commanding your money. They are commanding, they are making incantations with words. Yep. Right? It's the same way, whereas they get up in the morning and talk to your business. Talk to yourself. Talk to your life.
Talk to your children.
Yeah. So, it's just that we don't do it with the mindfulness sometimes that is required. If you were not a believer, and I'm sorry, this is going beyond final minute word. If you are not a believer, just imagine that you went to some native doctor or whatever, and they give you some things to recite. You know, there is a mindset with which you will say it. You have to be that ritualistic with your confessions. It is ritual. Christ was crucified, his blood was shed. There is a covenant. Do you understand?
Yep.
Within the veil. The fact that it's unseen
Doesn't mean it.
doesn't mean,
That things didn't go down.
yeah. A life was slain. So people are carrying people, go and do ritual and, you know, this, that, and spill their blood. A life was slain.
Wow. I've never heard it like this before. I mean,
You have to be ritualistic, if you understand what I mean, right? In your mindset about what you're doing. It's for real. So it's not just some fancy thing, just just mumble some things in the morning, and it has just become religious. There's no effect, there's no impact, because your mind really self is not there. It's just a recitation. You're just reciting poem in the morning.
thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Our time is up. We have to run now. Thank you, sirs. Thank you very much. Thank you, sirs. Thank you. See you next month by the grace of God.